very good morning to you. This is Off the Shelf. My name is David Batsoffen, and joining me today is the author of this brand new book, my first book of Southern African caterpillars, butterflies, and moths, and it's published by Struik Nature. Steve Woodhall, good morning and welcome to you.
Good morning, David. Nice to see you.
It's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I have to say, I have a copy of your book here. And although I'm not the demographic, or I'd like to believe I'm not the demographic for this particular book, it is a stunning book and it's a great way to introduce young'uns to caterpillars, butterflies, and moths.
Well, funny you should say that because we launched it at the Kloof Open Gardens a couple of weeks ago and we were selling them on a stand. And we had people coming up there and buying it for themselves,
Fair
as
enough.
well as their kids.
All of a sudden, maybe I'm wrong. It reads on the back, the blurb, this beautifully illustrated book introduces 56 different Southern African caterpillar and their adult butterfly or moth. Young children, note, Steve, young children will learn about the fascinating life cycle of these insects and the important role that they play in pollination. Now, not only is the book in English, it's also in Afrikaans, isiZulu, and isiXhosa. I mean, you've covered all the bases. Let's talk through this. And before we get to that, who is Jennifer? Is it Schaum? And how did you find?
Schaum, yeah. No, Straight found her. She's one of the illustrators. She's done other things for them as well. And
Okay.
she's a genius. And she does it all in coral draw. That's the amazing thing. Um,
The,
I used to draw in pen and ink and airbrush and Cumberland pencil and that sort of thing. And I was never able to get that kind of detail
I mean,
and accuracy.
I don't know if people can see the detail is fascinating. It really and truly is. And then just before we get on to some of the species that you've sent me and that we're going to chat about, in the book, with certain of the species, there's a little, I don't know if people can see that, a little sort of death head there. Say
Yep.
poisonous. Do not touch.
Yep.
Don't pick up. Don't eat. Don't do anything. Just look at it and walk on by.
Yeah, look, we decided to err on the side of caution with this because a lot of Lepidoptera are toxic in some way. It's one of
Mm,
their natural the one on the front cover, that's leopard magpie moth. That's a caterpillar's abstract toxins from cycads from the young growth, which carry through to the adults and they make them distasteful to birds.
right.
That's and it's almost all Lepidoptera families have got at least one distasteful creature within them.
It's much like humans. There's always one distasteful member of a family that you don't want to have around for a braai. Also, the way that you've structured the book or the way that you've set it out, you've not dumbed it down. You've just made it easier for youngsters to read and to absorb. You sort of gotten rid of the gumph around the technicalities of the butterfly and of the caterpillar and just kept it to its very essence, which I think is great.
Thank you. It's actually about allowing people to appreciate them because study can only happen if people appreciate things
Yeah.
and kids appreciate images. There's some the language we deliberately kept as simple and basic as possible, so it's easy for people to understand and to take in.
Mm.
So we hope to create a, a, a generation of young lepidopterists eventually. It's like a gateway drug if you like.
So let's have a look at some of these little creepies that you sent me and talk us through them. So here's number one. They're in no particular order. What is this, and do we need to be scared of it?
This is the adult Amaryllis borer moth, and it's a very innocuous looking little creature, little dark moth, and it'll come and sit on your wall under the light, and you don't know what it's doing.
Right.
And to fact, it's one of the Lepidoptera that creates the most ire and angst amongst gardeners. Because if you show the next picture, which is the caterpillars, that's the one that everybody knows. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah. The moth lays her eggs on plants in the family Amaryllidaceae, and the most popular of those are clivias. So you have a nice clump of clivias in your garden, and all of a sudden you notice the leaves are wilting, and then the leaves are disappearing, and then the plant vanishes. And there's loads of little black and yellow caterpillars all over the place. And that's when the cry usually goes out, where's the doom? Where's the blue death? And we see a lot of the, in fact, 35, 40 of the images in the book were chosen because they're the ones that crop up most often on social media, with people saying, "What worm, please? It's eating my plants," or "It's enormous. Can it bite me?" So we thought, okay, people are noticing these things. Rather than just spending a whole load of time on Facebook posts explaining things, let's put it into a book,
Well,
which is why we have this one.
Yeah, why not indeed? And you're quite right. With specifically clivia growers, they are a law unto themselves. So when their plants disappear, as you say, they rightly reach for anything poisonous. And we'll get onto that in a
Yeah,
while because I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that caterpillars do have a place. So if they,
absolutely.
do a sacrificial plant, put something in the garden that they like, that they can eat to their heart's content, and save your, I don't know, your show standard clivias for another part of the garden, which they may not get to.
The thing is, insects, a lot of insects are herbivores, and herbivores are a vital part of any ecosystem. They
Yeah.
form the base of the animal food chain. And what happens with clivias is that gardeners have played around with the natural ecology, and they've taken a plant which normally occurs at very low density in forests. So the chances of a female moth finding a plant are fairly low.
Mhm.
And then they plant them in vast numbers in their garden in the shade. Oh, doesn't that look beautiful? And the moth flying around, they're using scent to detect food. Oh, I
Mhm.
can smell food. In they come, they lay their eggs. And it's not just one moth, it's dozens of them come in and lay their eggs.
Yeah.
And the result is plant destruction.
Mm.
Now, there are ways of preventing it. One of my friends who's very much into caterpillar rearing found an easy way of fixing it is to get some crinums, just ordinary, crinum bulbisperm, which are also Amaryllidaceae, and plant them nearby. The
Mm.
moths will, they will preferentially go for the crinums. And if you put them in pots, you can just take them away from where the
Yeah,
crinums are.
that's
The
it.
crinums will survive. So
Yeah.
that's one way you can. Mm.
Think before you doom, people. Now,
Yeah.
what is this?
This is one of the most fascinating parts of Lepidoptera for me. And one of the things that's really attracted when I started learning about them. There's a big family of butterflies called the Lycaenidae. These are little gossamer wing butterflies. They're never very big. The biggest ones are only 50 millimeters across, and most of them are the size of a fingernail. And this is the caterpillar of the Anthini genus, the hairtails or ciliate blues. You can see on its back, it's producing a little droplet of liquid, and
Mm.
there's an ant there drinking the liquid. We call it honeydew because it was thought to be just sugar water. But now we've done research in this and done a lot of analysis, and we realize it's full of what they call allelochemicals or allomones,
Mm.
and they control the ant's behavior. It's actually quite scary. It's a bit like those fungi that attack
Mm.
insects and get them to crawl into a high space so they can fruit and spread spores. So what's happening here is this little butterfly's caterpillars feed on various members of what we used to call acacia. They feed on the fresh growth, the protein-rich parts of the plant, and they produce these chemicals which attract the ants. And the ants create a predator-free space around the caterpillar, so the caterpillar doesn't get attacked by other insects that might eat it or even parasitize it. And this isn't just one butterfly doing this. It's actually the biggest butterfly family in Africa. There's something like, well, around something like 2,000 species of these, and there's many different types of them, and not all of them, but a great majority have got these ant associations.
It's fascinating, Steve, because at the end of the day, we do believe, us humans, that we are the top of the food chain. And I keep pointing out to people, the more I learn, the more I realize that we've slipped down. I don't even think we're in the top 10.
Well, the food chain's complicated, isn't it? This is the
It
thing.
is,
It
it
goes
is
into
indeed.
all sorts of
And
strange directions.
yeah, unless there's a golden arches week, we don't survive. It's as simple as that.
This one is one of the. This is a hawk moth. You can tell it's a hawk moth because of the little tail, little bobbly tail it's got on its rear, and they vary from a short, stumpy tail to a long, sort of scimitar-shaped tail. But they've always got that. And this is a particularly interesting one. It's one moth also found in Europe. I used to dream of finding one of these when I was a boy. They're quite common here in South Africa. This is a death's head hawk moth, and
looks like
you can see it's very well camouflaged. It's got those diagonal stripes down the side. And this is the adult. And the adult, anybody who watches movies will remember The Silence of the Lambs with those moths that the perpetrator kept in a cage.
Yep.
And that's actually the American relative of this moth. This is the old world death's head hawk moth, Acherontia atropos. And you can see it's got a skull and crossbones on its back, and it has a very long history in superstition and sorcery and witchcraft and all these other things in Europe, and of course that's spread across the world as well. And they're beautiful creatures, and they've got a very interesting lifestyle as well. Most hawk moths are nectar feeders. Some of them don't feed at all, but most of them hover in front of flowers, and they've got this long tongue that they put into the throat of the flower and drink the nectar. This one raids beehives.
Oh wow!
It actually goes inside the actual nest itself, the hive, and crawls around, puncturing. It's a very short stabbing process. It's designed to puncture the cells and suck the honey out.
My goodness me!
The British used to call it a bee tiger.
You mentioned a moment ago about sort of traditions, myths, and legends. Are there, because of the fact that they're one thing and then they're another? They go from caterpillar to butterfly. Are there a lot of superstitions around that when it comes to butterflies? Because you start off as one thing and you end up as something totally different.
Funnily enough, no. I always thought that would be the case as well. The people don't tend to make the connection. I mean, there are certain rural places around the world where people don't know that caterpillars turn into moths and butterflies.
Okay.
Superstitions really go around the way they suddenly appear out of nowhere. There may be none, and then there's hundreds of them. Where did they come from? And particularly in Europe, there's a lot of superstitions about them being the souls of the dead.
Okay. I wonder. Another glorious caterpillar. Looks like something that Jackson Pollock might have put together.
Yeah. This is one of the Ophrys materna. It's one of a dot underwing moths, and it's again looks like protected coloration. Those bright orange eyes and extremely colourful, yellow and blue spots and white. But what it is, it's bluffing. But those eyes obviously are there to scare away predators, because what it does, it swallows air and puffs itself up and lashes from side to side. So if you're a little mouse, a small bird, fossicking around in the undergrowth looking for food, and all of a sudden these baleful eyes open up and start attacking you, what do? You fly away and leave it alone. So, because in actual fact, that's the moth. It's also got what we call startled coloration. The hind wings are normally kept hidden under the forewings,
right?
And it looks like a piece of bark or a dead leaf that's fallen to the floor. But if you disturb it, it flips its wings up, and then you see these bright yellow hind wings with the black dots in the middle. And a lot of moths do this. The emperor moths do it. Some of the hawk moths do it. A lot of butterflies have got startled coloration as well.
Yeah.
It's a well-known defense mechanism. This is a particularly nice one.
I wonder what goes through a predator's mind when it's just about to pounce on this. Let's use this particular moth as an example. It thinks it's a piece of, it's an easy prey, and then all of a sudden those orange wings are exposed, and that poor thing in mid-flight sort of does a reverse, let's get the heck out of Dodge type of thing.
Well, what it is, if nothing goes through its mind, it's a reflex. It's called the startle reflex. We've got it as well. If you suddenly flash a bright light in somebody's eyes at night, or flick your hands next to somebody's face, they'll jump backwards. It's the visual cortex doesn't actually process it. It's an automatic reaction to a startle stimulus, and that's what these creatures have had over 150 million years to evolve, and they've I don't know how many defense strategies. And here's another one: bright red coloration.
Yeah,
that's also, but this is genuine. This little butterfly, it's a garden acrea. It's found virtually all over the eastern and southern side of South Africa because people plant it, host plant in their gardens, which is the Kigeleria africana, the wild peach. And along come these little caterpillars which eat all the leaves of the tree.
I
and
take it this is
defoliate
the
it.
caterpillar.
This is the caterpillar, yes, and it's on a wall, as you can see.
Right.
Because what happens is they go on the tree, and the butterfly lays a lot of eggs. One butterfly will lay 100, 200 eggs in a clump, and then you get these little gregarious caterpillars that start eating the leaves, and within a few weeks, the tree has got no leaves.
Right.
But everybody gets worried about it. Say, "Eat, my tree's going to die." But in actual fact, the tree benefits because it's an evergreen, and the only way that it can get its nutrients back into the soil, because it doesn't lose its leaves like a deciduous tree, is through insect poop, which is well macerated, chewed up, and contains all the micronutrients.
Right.
So the tree absorbs the nutrients, and what you'll find is if you've got a small tree and it gets attacked by these things, the next year you've got a slightly bigger tree. It actually stimulates growth. It's natural pruning. Wow. And that red coloration is a warning because that tree contains cyanogens, which are cyanide, precursors. And the caterpillar then it metabolizes these and it carries through to the adult. So the adult carries this red coloration as a warning, don't eat me, which works on most birds, but not cuckoos.
It almost looks like it's been stitched together, like a shoelace.
Yeah, that's the abdomen you can see there. It's got those are the segments of the abdomen, yeah.
Okay.
But
or a back. This looks like they're on a wall or in an overhang with some.
That's on my back wall.
Things.
That's on my back wall. I've got a big colony of these in my garden, and every year the caterpillars they don't form their pupae or pupate on the plant. They wander away. It's obviously a defense mechanism, and then they normally choose a rock or tree bark or something where they can hide away, and they tend to clump together like this. And you can see this. I photographed them just as some of them were turning into pupae. So they're gregarious as pupae as well, and you can see these. Anywhere in the country where people have planted, wild peach, you'll see these, and normally they come on your wall, and they that's where they form their pupae.
Should we?
And the pupae are full of toxins as well.
I was about to say, should we point out that caterpillars should not be handled? Get them on a leaf or a twig if you want to look at them closer, or you want to take a photograph, but don't pick them up because some have lots of little hairy bits that will not stab you, but will get in and itch almost like fiberglass fibers.
Yeah, well, it works the same way. You get these tiny little bristles, which the caterpillar actually can release them. Some caterpillars have got bristles on their thorax, and they thrash around, and the hairs come loose and they float through the air. But none of our African ones are deadly. They won't kill you. They'll make you itch, and they might make your eyes water a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. We normally say to people, if it's naked and hairless, it's usually safe to pick it up. Whether it's good for the caterpillar or not, I don't know.
In that statement, in that statement,
Yeah.
Steve, is a one-line joke, which I'm not going to even attempt now. We might get into trouble. And I take it this is the moth that comes from that.
No, the previous one was the acrea. That was the garden acrea's caterpillar.
Oh, I've gone backwards. Yeah.
Okay. This is a moth. This is a moth whose caterpillars have a similar defense mechanism. This is Gloriana's tussock, and there's the caterpillar. Now, you see those?
Put this backwards.
You see those yellow triangles on his back. There's actually bunches of hairs. And those that belong hairs are not the ones that make it itchy. It's those ones in those tussocks. And these are the ones. If you get those on the underside of your arm, then you are going to start getting a rash. And that's its defense mechanism.
And how do you cure what do you do for the rash? I mean, do you just leave it to go away, or can you put on some sort of salve like aloe vera or something like that?
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. Just wash it. Sometimes if you can see the hairs stuck in your skin, a bit of sticky tape put on the skin and then pulled off will remove the hairs. Yeah, using calamine lotion or aloe vera gel or something normally soothes the irritation. Yeah.
Go old school, mercurochrome. Just throw it on.
These things work. We've known about the the soothing properties of various plants as
Yeah.
long as we've been human. In fact, before we were
So
human.
let's go back to what it looks like. That's what it looks like once it's become an adult. And then what is
Yep,
the
it's a
sort of
beauty.
lifespan of these moths and butterflies, Steve?
It
Do they
varies
sort of
tremendously.
live fast, die young type of thing?
Well, for a start, most of them spend something like 90% of their existence as a caterpillar.
Right.
Um, Obviously, a lot of the time you just can't see them. You know, they're there,
Mm.
but they're hiding. Some of them you see because they do things like defoliating trees. But some lepidopterans, no butterflies, but no, sorry, I lied. Some butterflies and a lot of moths don't feed as adults. They actually don't have a functioning proboscis. They exist to emerge from the pupa, fly around, find a mate, and then just lay eggs in the case of the female, and then get eaten, become part of the food chain. They're essentially the same function as a flower and a plant. It exists to mate, to be fertilized
Mm.
and set seed. These exist to be fertilized and lay eggs. Some butterflies and moths, the migratory ones, can live for a very long time, several weeks. There are butterflies in South America that can live for months. In fact, we get
Really?
them here that all the way through winter. They overwinter as adults and they live for 3 or 4 months. Others, like some of those big emperor moths, which don't feed as adults, they only live for a couple of days or a week at the most until they find a mate. So it depends on the lifestyle. Remember, there's so many species of these, and the variation in the lifestyles is immense.
Yeah, I should imagine. I mean, we here in Johannesburg, we haven't had it this year. Maybe it's early or maybe they're not coming. The brown vein whites that
Yep.
migrate up through South Africa. And, they're not here. And then one day you look out your window and it looks like snowflakes. And then they're gone.
Yeah, as a blizzard. Yeah, we changed the name from brown veined white to pioneer caper white because we realized that butterfly is not only found in southern Africa, it's found all the way through Africa and all the way across Asia, Arabia, Asia, as far
Okay.
as Pakistan and also Western India, where it always lives around arid areas, and the caterpillars feed on a common desert plant called white. What's it called? Shepherd's Tree, that's right, and the nearly said the Afrikaans then, which is not nice. And yeah, the caterpillars are gregarious,
Mm,
and something triggers a mass emergence of butterflies, and then they fly. In this area, they come from the Kalahari, and they generally fly in an easterly direction,
mm.
but they radiate. But it happens in Tanzania, in Kenya, Nigeria, Sudan, Arabia, everywhere, Israel. You get these butterflies all over the place, and we don't exactly know what the trigger is. There's one guy doing his PhD on these, and he's been doing it for years because he hasn't come to the conclusion yet as to what actually triggers them doing it.
Sorry, I have a very Gary Larson sense of humor when it comes to wildlife. And I'm just figuring there's a generation of those butterflies sitting quietly talking amongst themselves, going, listen, this guy will never finish his PhD. If we keep changing the day we start,
Yep.
we'll drive him mad until he just gives up.
Well, he thought he had the answer. We all did. We all thought it was overpopulation pressure
Yeah.
causing some sort of hormonal imbalance in the butterflies, which would trigger a mass migration. But he's found things that contradict that, which is amazing.
As as
That's a
as
rabbit hole you can fall down for an hour, I can tell
yeah,
you.
as Bob Dylan said, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind.
Yep.
We're talking about my first book of Southern African caterpillars, butterflies, and moths. It's written by Steve Woodhall. It's illustrated by Jennifer Schaum, who's done a brilliant job. And not only is it in English, it's also in Afrikaans, in isiZulu, and isiXhosa. Steve, where is the book available?
All bookshops, and it's available online as well.
Okay.
If you go on the Struik website, they got various links, and I've got my own website that I just started, and we're going to put it on that as well.
Great
Um,
stuff. And are you one of those authors who wanders into a bookstore? Although your picture is nowhere on this book, but you will stand in the bookstore and go, "Oh, look, there's a new book by Steve Woodhall. I've got to add it to my collection and then see if anybody leaps up and joins in the rush to the till.
I tend to go, when I was traveling a lot, I'd go into the airport bookshop and see if they had my books in stock. And if they weren't, I'd phone Struik and say, your sales guys need
Well, here's
a
one of
tweet.
them, and
Absolutely.
your picture is on the back of this one. So
Yep.
you sort of can stand at the airport bookshop going, I wonder who wrote this type of thing.
Well, there was a funny thing that happened when I was at Heathrow. I went into the Terminal 4 arrivals and I
Yeah.
saw down a whole pile of various field guides, birds, everything. And my butterfly book was at the top.
Mm.
So I wandered across to the lady, the sales lady, and I said, why are you selling these at arrivals and not at departures? Because people, would be interested in seeing what they're going to see. She
Yeah.
said, no, because books are heavy. People don't take them overseas with them. So they go and do their tour, they go and have a look and they take photographs. And then when they come back, they buy the book and then they dine out on it for months afterwards, saying, we saw this one, we saw this one. And then when she was looking for books like this, and then it was the double take was amazing. She looked at the back cover, she looked at me, she says, is this you? I said, yeah. She had with her signing books for about an hour.
You should have said no, but I get that all the time.
Yeah, but it was fun.
Steve, just to wrap up, if I had met you in matric, for instance, did Steve Woodhall at 18 know that this was going to be his career path, or did you come upon this later in life?
No, I didn't realize it was something you could do for a living until it was too late. I did chemistry and I went into industry
Right.
and I did that, until I was 65 and I retired. But all that time, first of all, I collected butterflies. I had a massive collection, which eventually I donated to a museum. And I discovered photography at a fairly early age. Luckily, one of my employers trained me as a photographer, so I got the
Oh, okay.
skills to do it that way. And then, yeah, I just started taking photographs, got involved with some other lepidopterists who were photographers, and then we started writing books.
And it's as the rest they say is
The
history.
rest is history.
The book we've been talking about is my first book of Southern African caterpillars, butterflies, and moths. It's published by Struik. You can find it in good, bad, and indifferent bookshops, or you can find it online, or you can go to Steve's website. What is the URL for the website, Steve?
It's just triple W butterfly gear, all one word, .coza.
Great stuff. My guest today on Off the Shelf has been Steve Woodhall. We've been chatting about his new book. Why don't you go out and get it? You will learn an inordinate amount. You really and truly will. And not only will you learn a lot, you'll also learn to live with the caterpillars rather than trying to spray them with terrible stuff, which is not very good for us or the environment. Until the next time, from yours truly, do take care.